In the last lecture, we worked on our burger component and made sure that we can output a list of burger ingredients, actually a list which started as an object and which we then transformed into an array. Now, with that, a first important step was taken. What happens now if we actually have a burger which starts with all ingredients set to 0 though? Now we see that. Now that's perfectly fine, we have no ingredients to render. We don't get an error because we just have an empty array which we try to render. But it would be even better if we could show some message like, please start adding ingredients or something like that. Now to show something in case we have no ingredients, I need to find out if we got no ingredients. Now transformed ingredients is always going to be an array though. Just an array of empty arrays in the end. But that is something which is kind of hard to check for us. So how can we find out if we got ingredients or not? We can reduce the transformed ingredients array. For now, let's simply console log it so that we get an idea about how it looks like. If I now save this, this is our ingredients array which we output. And of course, it's a couple of empty arrays and hence doesn't work. Or it does work, but it doesn't display anything. So checking the length won't do the trick because the length is 4. It's these inner arrays which are interesting to us. What we can do is we can simply flatten this array to make sure we pull out the values of these inner arrays and create one array only which contains all these values. We can do that by adding reduce to our transformed ingredients logic here. Reduce is a built-in array function which allows us to transform an array into something else. It takes a function as an input and this function receives 2 arguments passed in automatically by JavaScript, the previous value and the current value. The reduce method does not only accept this callback here, which is executed on every element in this array we return here, it also accepts an initial value, let's say an empty array. So the initial value of the reduced value. Now, of course, we want to adjust this reduced value by returning something. And it will then loop through all the elements and simply add them to the initial value step by step. So here I want to return the updated value starting with the initial one is then stored in this first argument which we receive in each loop here. So array, this R argument, is the always updated root array which I want to return in the end. So I will simply concat something to that, concat L. This will simply take the given element for which we're looping and add it to this array. Now if we save this, we get an empty array. And if I reintroduce an ingredient like 2 cheese pieces, we get an array with 2 objects. And the fact that these objects look strange simply is related to the fact that these are JSX elements handled by React. It is of type cheese though, as you can see. So this is how we now flattened the array. And if this is unclear, I strongly recommend checking out the documentation of these default JavaScript array functions like map and reduce. So with that, we got an array which is either empty or contains the JSX elements. And since it might be empty, we can simply check if transformed ingredients length is equal to 0. If that's the case, then I want to output a paragraph where I say, please start adding elements. I will therefore convert this constant transformed ingredient to a variable. In ES6 we use let for this. And then here I will set transformed ingredients equal to a paragraph where I will simply say, please start adding ingredients, like this. And we still output transformed ingredients down there. Save the file and update the burger builder to have no cheese anymore. And now if you save that too, you should see please start adding ingredients. And of course, this should also stick no matter what your viewport is. That is another important step. Now the next step is to start adding these controls to let the user add and remove ingredients.